before we start this episode, we just want to give a shout out. First of all, we always shout out at the end of the episode our patrons. And unfortunately, if you're not listening right to the end, you miss out on that. And so we just wanted to mention at the beginning today that you can be a patron and you can support what we're doing. Not only do you support the podcast, but you're by becoming a monthly patron, you're helping keep the indoor spot here fee-free. And not only allowing kids to come in, but allows us to have equipment to bring out to the skate parks and so like I think of when we go to Long Plain Skate Park and we bring a bunch of boards, and so kids that come to the park with nothing can grab a board and roll around the park, which is amazing, and we're so grateful for people that support.
Yeah, when we went to Long Plain, it's really encouraged me to watch the kids. They're like, there's this one kid that like learned to roll down a bank, and he's just so pumped. And like every time we went there, he'd be like, "Give me that board," and he'd be learning something new like every single day. Yeah. So also we want to shout out a few shops. The first one we want to shout out is Scam Skate. They have been doing so much for us. They actually have been making our shop boards, like the one we have on the wall. We really appreciate them. They're awesome guys. They're actually some of the people that Steve used to skate with back in the day from Portage.
If you're in Winnipeg and looking for skate goods, support Scam because they do so much for us. They make sure we get product we need for skate camps and for all kinds of things. They just make sure that we're always set up and always so supportive of everything we're doing. And so we just want to make sure that they get some love here.
Two other places that we want to shout out is the Edge Skatepark, which is the YFC in Winnipeg. They have also helped us quite a bit to get some supplies into our shop here. Yeah,
and even like before we had our own shop decks, they were supplying us with the Edge decks so that we had decks available, and kids broke a deck. They didn't have to wait till they made a trip into Winnipeg. We had something available here so that they could keep rolling.
Yeah, which is huge. Mm-hmm. And then the last place is Elevate Skate Shop in Niverville, Manitoba. Mm-hmm. They've helped us a lot with boards and apparel, mostly shoes. Yeah. We've had a lot. I think all of our shoes that we've ever gotten have been from Elevate, and Johnny's been helping us out so much down there. So
yeah, Johnny does such a good job. Show him some love too, because he's so good at letting us get some of his old stock in shoes at a really good price so that we can keep kids with shoes on out here, because we don't really have a reasonable place to buy skate shoes here. And so we get a few from him once in a while, and it just helps kids that are in desperate need of shoes. So yeah, those three places have really supported us. And so just, make sure you support them. They're awesome.
Thank you, guys. Welcome back to the Platform Skate Podcast, episode number 23.
Yeah, and with COVID and restrictions and scheduling, we had trouble finding a guest for this week.
We're kind of starting to get sick of these Zoom call meetings.
Right.
At this point.
Yeah. So. Not that we're not willing to do them, but it makes editing a little harder. But we love hearing from those people. Mm-hmm. But you're stuck with just us today because we didn't have a guest, and we wanted to make sure you still got an episode. So here it is, just Raleigh and I.
Yeah. I know you missed this whole dynamic. It's like the first 3 episodes or something like that was just us.
Yeah. And so when we were talking about what we were going to do, it just so happens that recently an old video has been recirculating on Facebook, a documentary put out by Dustin Plett. Just a quick comment about Dustin Plett. I'm trying to get a hold of you. I want you on the podcast. Please come on the podcast. If you hear this, get a hold of us, please. I've tried contacting you multiple social media accounts, and so please come on the podcast. Anyways, Dustin did a documentary quite a few years ago, back in when I was running the shop, and I was included in the documentary, and so we thought that we would talk about the documentary and kind of. We've alluded to some of the things that the documentary talks about on some episodes, I guess. And I think we'll start by showing the documentary so that you can see what we're going to be talking about. So here it is.
I had heard about it from some older skateboarders. I just heard it was like this giant cement pad, you know, and it was just kind of like a lawless spot that skateboarders came and kicked it and brought ramps and hung out and, you know, kind of like a place to belong, perhaps, if you will.
If you asked the police or the town council here in Portage-la Prairie, the platform was a rebel skate park. But if you asked Jeremy Gordon, it was something else. It was a place he could go when he had no place else.
My family had actually separated. I was living with my dad at the time. Yeah, we had kind of had a bit of a falling out, so when I moved out, it was wintertime. I was 15 years old. My life changed when I started skateboarding at the platform because I was there all the time. We would spend afternoons there, evenings, like we would skateboard there until the sun went down, you know. If I ever needed kind of like some family style support or advice, you could usually find some sort of counsel there. There was definitely still conflict there, you know what I mean? There were members of this gang that, you know, still kind of runs in Manitoba, Indian posse, and they would come and, you know, they would hassle the skateboarders.
The platform's reputation for violence was known throughout the community. Steve Hildebrand was an employee of Youth for Christ in Portage-la Prairie.
There was a little bit of a youth gang element in Portage, even though no one wanted to call it that, made up of Aboriginals who saw it as something that was happening on their territory, and the skateboarders they saw as a bit of a gang.
Youth for Christ, or YFC, is a charitable organization that works with young people in the Portage area.
It kind of came to their attention that there was this kind of a renegade spot, right, where kind of anything went.
Their RCMP, along with a few other community people, had come to us with issue about skateboarding at the platform. The idea was to develop it into a skate park, preferably an indoor skate park.
The land that the platform sat on was donated to YFC by West Coast Storage.
We at first were really involved with it. There were skateboard committee meetings.
In the beginning, lots of excitement. Everyone was on board. Everyone had ideas. Everyone wanted to see this go.
I remember going to some of those meetings after school, and there'd be 25, 30 kids in this room. You know, the table would just be packed. We'd be pulling in more chairs for people, you know.
The kids at the platform started noticing some changes, things that they didn't necessarily agree with.
There were several poles erected on the sides of the platform, right around the edge, and it said, you know, Youth for Christ property rules, and, you know, it was like no swearing, no drinking, no roughhousing, you know, no skateboarding after a certain time. And they came down into the picture and they tried to kind of put all these constrictions on the skateboarders.
There already started at that time to be a little trickle of what's the word I'm looking for? Discontent.
This discontent over the way things were going only grew over time. The skateboarders were waiting for something to happen, and it seemed like nothing ever would. YFC made the decision to make its presence felt, to reassure the kids that something was happening on their behalf.
I started spending time at the platform, a little bit of a supervisory role.
He definitely didn't belong there. He tried his hardest to. He would be the guy in the corner there, you know, the old guy that nobody really knew, trying to say like, hey, get that bottle of beer out of there. So as YFC started to become involved, they started to try and regulate things more and kind of almost, you know, kind of coach in a way. Whereas the great thing about skateboarding is it's an individual thing, you know.
They had their rickety old ramps there that were, you know, home built and slapped together there, and they'd fall apart and you'd repair them. And some of the guys that were involved in that really took ownership in the platform saw us as kind of invading and taking over something that wasn't ours to take over.
He was pretty poorly welcomed there, you know.
There was a lot of negative kind of vibe that came towards me because of that, which was tough because I really felt like I was there to help them, and yet I was being viewed as the bad guy.
The growing tension between skateboarders and YFC were slowing the progress of the project. But more importantly, YFC's financial situation was becoming a serious issue.
Youth for Christ was at the point of bankruptcy. What started out as a $1.2 million project, by the time they developed that further and further, it ended up being $3.9 million project. And in the end, it never did go. It just was too much money to raise. Once they determined that they were not going to develop the land, they did put it up for sale.
This 2-acre area that you see fenced here was the property that Wesco had donated to YFC a number of years ago. This was the parking lot, and then right here and towards the front was the first level, or platform, if you will. And there was a second one about 4 feet up. Bottom section was where most of the skateboarding went on the first tier. Lots of skateboarding. I think it'll be lots of storage now. If I were to go back and advise them to do something differently, I would have told them to follow through with what they were, with their plan, you know, follow through with what they had told us they were going to do. I'd like to ask them why they sold the platform. I'd like to ask them where the money went. I'd also like to thank them for screwing up a good thing.
Obviously, when YFC has to make a decision like that, they're not looking at the faces of those guys. These guys, like, they've come to expect us to take care of them, and we left them hanging. On behalf of myself, I would apologize for being part of a system that was pushing the culture down. I would apologize and hope that I would have gotten it right after that. At the time, I was naive and went with the program, thought I was doing the right thing. Definitely would do it different now.
My fondest memories were, just the skateboarding, you know, and hanging out with your friends. Those were my favorites. If the platform was still around, I think this evening there'd be a skate session going on, you know. There'd be some younger guys there, probably some high school kids hanging out, you know, skateboarding until the sun went down. Guys laughing, maybe a few kids running around, playing on the ramps, you know, treating them like slides, that sort of thing. Just being kids, you know, just enjoying their youth, right?
Steve is now running a skate shop in Portage. His shop is called the Platform Skate Shop. The name of his shop is a homage to the great place the platform used to be. As for the platform, it's gone. The land has been sold, the platform was torn down, and a new storage facility erected, slated to open spring 2009.
So, Raleigh, as somebody who wasn't around during that era, what's your response to this, to watching that documentary, or this documentary?
Yeah. I watched it a while back. You sent it to me, and then watched it again recently, and I have a lot of mixed feelings about it, because I think a lot of the stuff was said I agree with, and I would be frustrated as well. But it's also like, it was hard to maneuver everything. Like, there was so much going on. So, I don't know. I didn't want it. Yeah. It felt like there was a lot of people getting frustrated and whatnot. And I guess it was just somebody that didn't experience the platform whatsoever. Like, I wasn't even around when it was even when it was a thing at all. Like, right. I was before the platform, Campbell Soup, and the shop. So I don't know any of these people. Right. And so I guess it's just confusing for me why it seems like people are so angry.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was interested that you went there, because kind of when you started that comment, I was thinking you were going to go more like in the way that you were frustrated in the same way that Jeremy Gordon would have shared his frustration, because like, as somebody who didn't experience it, and just the point of view that the documentary comes from,
right,
then yeah, like, you could watch that and say, yeah, like, it looks really bad. Like, it looks like I'm a really bad person.
Right.
The way I'm represented on that documentary. And so if you didn't know me, would it be easy to side with Jeremy on his point of view?
That's true. I never really thought of it from that perspective, because I'm coming from the perspective where I know you.
Right.
And I know you're not that person.
Right.
That's like trying to destroy everybody's world.
Yeah.
Right. Because for a lot of people, the platform was their world.
Yeah.
That's all they did, was hang out at the platform.
Yeah.
So for it shutting down is a big thing, right?
Yeah. Well, and going back to Maddie's episode, he talks about that, right? Like, that was his home, that was his life. And so to have that end, it's a big deal for that age of skater in Portage, right?
Yeah. Well, he said even like keeping the piece of concrete from it, like, it was that big that he'd keep a slab of concrete, which seems so ridiculous, but because it was such a home for people.
Yeah.
Like, for a lot of people, it probably felt more at home than at their house, right?
Yeah.
So,
and that's one of the things that Jeremy mentions on the documentary as well, right? That it was that place for him when things weren't safe at home.
Yeah.
that was a safe place for him to be, where his friends were and whatever. And so to have that taken away, even the things that we've talked about on other episodes about DIY and stuff like that, and how that was very much that idea, and then it looks like an organization comes and takes that away, right?
Yeah.
And in some sense that is true. Like there's no denying it, that YFC's involvement did change things there.
Mm-hmm. And I think you made that pretty clear in the documentary as well.
For sure.
Yeah.
And so whether it would have happened anyways, that's not the point. The point is that for the skater of that era, it's very clear that YFC took away a very special place.
Mm-hmm.
Or like the title of the documentary would say, magical.
Right. Yeah. So I guess, with your question before, like, what would I think if I didn't know you? That's just really got me thinking now that I probably would be pretty frustrated. Been like, everything was just fine the way it is. We made this spot what it is, and then people come in here and now it's rubble.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. So the other thing that I am curious about is you have that age of skater, that Jeremy and Dustin who made the documentary, their age group, who saw it that way. But then we've had like Adam and Matt Andrushak and guys like that were kind of the next generation that have been on the podcast and don't necessarily share that same view.
Right.
And so that's the other interesting thing I find. Like, it's like, why didn't they see it as negative as the generation just a little bit older than them?
Right. Yeah, and that's what I was curious, or that's what caught me off surprise when I watched the documentary the first time, was we've already had all these guys on here that were like, yeah, it was awesome. Like, we hung out with you, and like we did all these things, and like everything was so awesome. But then I like watched this documentary, and it's so dark, or it's not dark, but it's like, it's kind of a whoa. Like, that's not what I understood.
Right.
Right. That's not what I heard from other guys.
Even the way I'm portrayed on there, it's like, why would anybody hang out with me?
Right. Yeah. And, well, I mean, we're 23 episodes in, and we've had, like, most of our guests have been old platform guys.
Right.
And so, obviously, they all wanted to come on here. And because they had some kind of connection, right? Like, if this video is so true and everyone's like, oh, we all hate Steve, then how have we made it this far with all these people?
Yeah.
Like this, how do we have 20 some episodes with guests?
I guess you could say that we're handpicking our guests, which maybe, but we are trying, like, I would love to have the guys from that generation come on the podcast for sure.
For sure.
We just haven't had an opportunity for that to happen. Some of them I've reached out to and have not heard back. And others, I just don't have contact information for. And so if they are listening and want to come on the podcast, reach out and connect with us. Like,
by all means, yeah.
Our contact info is in the show notes. So please connect with us. We'd love to have your perspective on the show. I know there's been a few comments on our YouTube asking for some of those guys, and we would welcome having them.
Trust me, guys. We want these people on here. We want to hear all kinds of perspectives.
Yeah.
Like, we've heard a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different things that have gone on in the past through Platform Skate, but like, there's always more perspectives.
Yeah.
Like, that's why every episode is so unique. It's because we have all these different perspectives, and so we want yeah, we want some of the guys that like Dustin and Jeremy and like people in that era.
Yeah.
We want, yeah, I want to hear perspectives from them. I don't know how we had a guest that from that era. I was gonna say that old, but that might have been too.
No, I
No?
don't think so.
Not that far back.
Well, no, I can't think of anyone we would have had
Well,
that goes back that far yet.
so I guess one question that I do have is, what got YFC involved in the platform? As they said in the video, after YFC came and they put the signs up and everything, like how did that come about?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I do mention it a little bit. It's kind of edited, but there is a little mention of it. The idea that I don't remember what year it would have been, but I do remember distinctly the RCMP coming to YFC and saying that this is a real problem area in the community, and they would love us to help make it a safer place. And of course, because YFC believes in the hope and potential of every young person, the idea was that these were young people that maybe the community didn't see the hope and potential in, and so it would be a great place for us to be involved. And so we began to look at how to make it a safer place. Unfortunately, the whole attitude, or that, I guess, especially in that era, it's like skateboarding was so like punk rock, rebellious, countercultural, and just anti-establishment.
Right.
That to have an organization get involved, that's actually goes against everything that the community is built on.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I've always kind of lived a way like that where I don't like a lot of structure, and I really like, even working here at YFC, it's more structured than just doing whatever we want. But I remember working at like a youth group, and it was like, okay, games this time, blah, blah, like. And that was too much structure. But then here I can like go and skate with people, and it's less structure. But like for someone that's just there to skate, like not even to, like they're just here to hang out with their friends, it could seem like as soon as you put a sign up, it's like, this is structured. They're trying to control me. And that's,
Yeah, like I guess there would have been a lot of pride in the fact that this is a space that we created for ourselves, and we have our own kind of hierarchy and rules,
right.
And so to have an organization / adults coming in and saying, "Oh, here's the new rules here," obviously, anyone's gonna be frustrated with that, right?
Yeah. It's like having someone walk into your house and eat your food straight out of your fridge, kind of thing.
Yeah. So how do you do that well? I don't know if there is a way, and I don't know, like, so for me to look back at that, then what's the right way to do it? I don't know if there is a right way. Like, it's probably the right way is to leave it alone, and like, maybe be involved more informally, like not as an organization, but be part of the community as somebody who goes there to skate and wants to be part of that community, rather than as an organization that's trying to create a safe place. That's probably the only way. For me, as the face that was there, eventually, in the beginning, there was some other people that were hired to be part of that. But I was a guy that, as you can see in the video, I was there, I was on my bike. And so I appreciated the space to use with my bike. And so I was kind of there somewhat anyways. But this idea of being an authority figure there, that's where the problem started. And that's on the video close to the end, I'm apologizing. And I think that's a big part of what I'm apologizing for is coming in as an authority figure, because that was just not a positive way to build relationship there.
Yeah.
And that's some of the mistakes that we made in the beginning that I wish we could go back on. And I'm not sure exactly what it would look like to go back, but I know it would look less like authority.
Yeah. Well, I'm even thinking now it's a little bit different, but there's a few guys that are like doing stuff at the DIY in town. It, like, say YFC bought that spot. I would even feel a little bit like, oh, about it. Like, unless there was like big plans for it that could benefit it. But even like, I don't know, it just feels a little like gut wrenching, because it's like,
right.
Like they put so much work into the spot. So for us to go and just,
yeah.
But weren't you were pretty involved in it before YFC, right?
No, not a lot, because it was mostly skaters there, and I was a BMX guy.
Oh, okay.
I mean, we were there a little bit, but we were a different group. Yeah, we weren't there, like, we didn't have ownership there like the skate guys did. Like, it was definitely their spot.
Yeah.
The idea was, and those guys, and Jeremy talks about it on that video about, being part of a committee. That, and there was excitement around it. Things were going to happen. YFC was going to build a building on that spot so that we'd have indoor skating and have it year round. All those guys were on board with that. I wonder if it was never communicated, and I'm sure it wasn't. I'm sure this wasn't communicated, that you would lose what you have, right? Like that ownership, that creating your own space. Like, in order for it to become an indoor spot, it doesn't matter who's running the indoor spot. It's going to look different.
Yeah.
It's going to change. And that's something that was never addressed, to say, you know what, guys, you're excited about this, but just so you realize, it's going to look way different. Like, for example, you're going to have to wear helmets. Right? Like, I don't know of an indoor spot where you're allowed without helmets.
Yeah.
Like, it's just insurance. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And so when the signs went up, there was a lot of pushback against those signs, and they kept getting tore down and stuff. And that's understandable, because who are you to tell us that we have to wear a helmet and that we can't swear and whatever here, right?
Did anybody ever skate any of the signs?
That's a good question. Probably.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I just remember them always got pushed over or whatever.
Right.
And so, it probably, like, that needed to be communicated better.
Yeah.
That, you know what? If you guys are on board with this, you're going to be giving up something.
Yeah. And they also can't go there whenever they want.
Right. Yeah.
Like during the summer. It'd be sweet to have a winter spot, or like a spot in the winter.
So, I think, thinking about it now, just as we're talking, I'm thinking, that's a big part of it, was just the communication that this is going to evolve and change into something that is not it's not going to be the same as what you guys had.
Yeah.
And so even if it didn't end up as a storage unit, but ended up as an indoor skate park, we probably still would have had people frustrated that it didn't have the same vibe that they created as a DIY spot, right? And so, so in some ways, there was no way to win. If we were going to be involved, there's no way to win. And even if we were developing it into something better, somebody's not going to be happy with it, because they're losing something. It's interesting that on the video, Jeremy talks about how I was this kind of outsider that was off in the corner kind of thing, being the old person. He did a good job of imitating me there.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that that's his perspective, and I believe that that's the way it looked to him. And yet, like, I just remember being so invited, especially when I picked up the skateboard, like because I still had a bike, but I'd come and with my skateboard and just feeling like I was welcome.
Mm.
I know, like, there were definitely times where there were people there that I knew didn't appreciate me being there,
Yeah.
for sure. No denying that. But overall, I remember more being invited and encouraged on my skateboard, and like guys helping me, giving me tips, and like coaching me on my skateboard. So yeah, it's interesting to hear his perspective, which I believe is true. For whatever reason, I remember more the positive times I had there, where guys were very welcoming and
Yeah.
invited me to be part of the community.
Yeah. Like, I think we talk a lot about like where skateboarding is a welcoming community,
Mm-hmm.
and they take in anybody and whatnot. So I guess just hearing that made me kind of frustrated, because I'm like, as a skateboarder, you should be like, oh, it's this old guy that was on a bike and he's starting to skate. Like, let's welcome him in and let's help him learn how to skate, or let's hang out with him or whatever. So I guess just to hear that makes me pretty frustrated that it's like no one really liked him. And it's like, well, like that, I don't think that's really fair to say. And I'm not using this platform to argue with anybody.
Right.
I'm just saying it as a skateboarder in the skateboard community. I think no matter who you are, you should be welcomed.
Yeah, but you have to remember that it's not just me being there
As a skateboarder.
Yeah, I was the face of an organization that was changing things.
True.
And so, yeah, it makes sense to me that there would be some struggle. And that's why, I guess, looking back now, like, why did I feel so much inclusion when I was that person that Jeremy was talking about, right? Like, why were some guys still so open to hanging out with me and teaching me to skateboard and stuff?
I mean, maybe it was like also just like his crew was like, we don't really like Steve. And so that's what he thought everybody was thinking. But like maybe like the people that you were chilling with were like didn't think that, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't either. It's just, yeah, it's interesting to think about.
Yeah.
When I watch the video, and I think back of those times, and I think of like where we've come since then.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that where I am now reveals my heart for the skate community, and so like that I'm not just remembered for that time where it wasn't a good situation.
Yeah.
With losing the platform, but that I be remembered for like all the parts of the skate community that I've had opportunity to be part of, which we've heard a lot of on the podcast, different people sharing different experiences that we've had together. And so like just through the different years, because that goes back quite a ways. And so since then we did the indoor facility, and then I had the shop, and now we have our little indoor spot, and just trying to build the skate community. And I hope that more people would remember me for that.
Yeah.
For building the skate community than for tearing it down.
Yeah. Because also chances are, and I know you said this isn't really important before, but I think it is. Chances are that spot would have probably got torn down because of the gang issues going on, right?
Yeah, or they would have sold it and
it would have been a storage
exactly.
container area.
Yeah.
Like it probably would have ended up the same way either way, since the RCMP were getting so involved and it was like becoming this big issue. I know people can be mad at you because because that's the way that it worked out, but it could have worked out like the other way, where it's like in my eyes, from what I understand everybody's saying, it probably would have got ripped out anyway, which is sad, but
Yeah.
it's probably true. So
Yeah. So for the guys that are from that era that they found so magical, I guess that's the thing about magic, right? It's fleeting, and so you can, you just have to appreciate it for what it was.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, most of the time when you have a magical time, it's not going to last long.
Yeah.
And you spend the rest of your life wishing for that magic again.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like just sitting there getting mad about it, you're just forgetting about all the good stuff that happened. Like, how many years do you think they skated there? Like,
yeah.
But if you like, and again, I'm not blaming anybody, but like, I don't know, if something happened to me and I'm just like, oh, it was so much better then, and I'm just going to sit here and just complain about it, I'm going to miss out on everything in the future, and I'm going to complain about the past instead of like appreciating the past and moving on with a better future, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you just sit there and look at everything negatively, life's just going to suck at that point. Like, it's just not going to be any fun. And I think that it should be fun. And so,
yeah, and I think another thing to look at is like what was the formula of the magic, and how do you get as close to that as you can, right? Like the relationships, the camaraderie, probably the challenge of learning new skills. All those things are part of it. It's not just location, right?
Yeah.
And so there's certain aspects of that you can carry with you.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, one of the things that I've always tried to do through the different roles that I've had in the skate community in this around here, is the idea of the thing that's magical for me is the inclusive community of skateboarding, and how, because I skateboard, I belong in that community. And so that's what we try to build here, right? Is that everybody gets to belong.
Yeah.
And so that is I guess the focus that I have with creating the magic again, is just having spaces where everybody belongs, no matter what skill level, and no
matter the location.
Yeah, like let's just create something that makes everybody feel known.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that I've been kind of thinking about a lot lately, is how much, when I feel known by the people around me, how good that feels and how much that does for me.
Yeah.
And so if we can have the people around us feel known, and how do you feel known? The first way is be called by name, right?
Yeah.
When we know people's names and you're greeted by name, you're known.
Yeah, that one surprised me, actually. I didn't see that coming. But that's very true. That's one thing that I really appreciate when I like don't know someone super well, but they come up to me and they're like, "Hey, Raleigh," and I'm like, "Whoa, that's like sweet,"
because you're known.
Yeah,
and probably for those guys that hung out at the platform back in those days, they felt known there.
Yeah,
the people that they were hanging out with, they knew them.
Yeah.
And they felt like a connection. And so in the same way, that's what we try to continue to do. And yeah, it looks different than what it looked like back then, but that's how we try to keep skate culture alive.
Yeah. I like the thought of it not being a location. I think that's really important. Like, sure, it was a magical place, but I think, like you said, just the camaraderie is the magical place. I think, like in Portage, we don't have a lot of skate spots, but even if we go to like some mani pad, which there's hundreds of them,
Mm-hmm.
but you go to some mani pad, or you go to like the park, or go to MNP or whatever, and you're with like those like five guys or six guys, two, like just the two of you, that's just as magical as like going to any park.
Right.
Like just chilling with that guy, skating, encouraging each other, being known by each other. That's the magical part of skateboarding that everybody, like the thing with the platform was it was so big, so you could have so many people being known by each other at the same time.
Yeah.
Basically, which felt really magical, I'm sure. It doesn't need to be stuck by location. You can just go and hang out with someone. As long as you're building relationship with each other, being known, you'll be fine. Like
That's our little chat on the documentary. If you have questions or comments in regards to the documentary, in regards to our chat about the documentary or that era, please leave comments. We appreciate all comments, and we're very open to, and like we said earlier, you have somebody that can come on and shed some more light on that time frame. We're more than happy to have them.
Yeah. And even if you're a little bit like too nervous to post a comment, because it could be like, I don't know, controversial, or you're just nervous to post it, like you can contact us personally as well.
DM or our emails on the show notes. So.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for those of you that made it through that episode.
Yeah. Might have been a bit of a long one, but
yeah,
no, it was good. Yeah. Thank you for joining us.